On the other side of that is for women being too focused on their career and forgetting they want a partnership and a marriage or, children, and always thinking they'll do it later, getting addicted to the success and also just addicted to work. I see women get addicted to work and to the stress and think that they don't have time. And that is baloney. Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm McKenna Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, McKenna. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, we have a kind of a different type of episode today because this one really came out of my own curiosity, where I wanted to interview Gigi on kind of the stages of life. So the different seasons of life that especially women go through, because Gigi, you've been through all of these stages. You're in you're in the wise woman stage, which we'll share is the 4th stage. But not only have you gone through them yourself, but you've also coached a lot of women at a lot of different stages of life. You've raised women, children, daughters, who have gone through most of these stages. And so I think just your unique perspective on kind of like the different seasons of life, what we go through, if you could go back and give your younger self advice or give younger women advice, what would you say? I just thought that would be really fun to hear for myself and then also for our listeners. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, she came up with this and we invented it like this. If I had more time to think about it, it would be fleshed out much better. But I think it's good. Yeah, there'll be certain little tips
have
here
a
and
dialogue.
there.
So the stages that we're going to talk about today are there's 4 of them. The first one we're going to call Maiden or young woman, and that is your 20s into your early 30s. The second one we're calling Queen, which is really kind of your prime, and that's around 33 to 43 or so. Then we have Alchemist, which is kind of that midlife time of maybe 44 to 60. And then finally the Wise Woman, which is postmenopausal, or we'll say roughly 60 plus. So we'll go into each of these. And I think one thing to just say first is that, of course, these are generalizations. And then also something, Gigi, you brought up before we were recording here is that it really depends if you have kids or you don't have kids, when you have children, if you're in a long-term relationship. So there's a lot of things that, of course, we can't take every factor into account. We're just going to share a kind of general high level at each of these stages and seasons. Yeah.
So let's begin.
So with Maiden or young woman, again, this is 20s or early 30s. If you have that mic, which you do right now, to just speak to women at this season of life, what advice would you give them, or how do you see that women can really make the most of this time?
The first thing that came to my mind when you asked me this was have a lot of fun. This is your time, to the 20s and the early 30s, or you're just putting things together. And so it's a time to have so much fun, learn things, get out there and explore life, try different things. Of course, you've got to earn. It's a time to also get in, and this is a time to really explore your passions and do a lot of different things. And of course, you need to have a job or some way you're earning and starting to earn money. But it is a time of exploration. It's a time of curiosity, of adventure. And so you have this time to just to start to see, what do you like and what do you love doing? And, yeah. So that's one thing I
What if
see.
someone like, me, I guess, maybe this leads us into the pitfalls a little bit, because I want to hear like, what do
Mm.
you think are some of the common challenges or pitfalls that women run into at this stage? But like, I ended up in a career that was great, but it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. And I was really scared to make a change. I do see a lot of people sort of follow. So some people really go the like fun and adventure and exploration route, but other people sort of follow a certain path or what they thought they should do, or what they studied in school. And how does someone like that, or what do you see there in terms of being able to tap more into sort of the fun and the exploration? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I do believe if you studied something in school and you went out there and you got a job, and even if it's not it, I think you're learning something very valuable, and that is to stay committed to something. And for you, that built a foundation for your work ethic in many ways, what you did originally.
Yeah.
Um, so I think you stayed a little too long, right?
Mm.
So maybe that was it. And to remember that if you are working and you have something and it's not quite it, that you're out there exploring. That's the main thing, is you're creating the life around it. So you're enjoying your life, you're having fun, and you're taking some of that money. I think if we get into the pitfalls is, or first let me say, what I think you should do is start taking a little bit of that money and learning to invest, or finding someone that's a mentor early on that teaches you about money and how to build your money, invest, save, all of those kind of things. So important at an early age, because we don't learn that in school anywhere, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think
That's
that is
something I think a lot of
hugely
people put
important.
off for later.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's interesting, because even if you don't, if you go into a career you really love, what I'm saying is not to bounce around and do all kinds of different jobs. I'm saying more in the surrounding part of your life is to be out there enjoying life and trying different things and learning new things and dancing and singing or whatever it is, and have this fun-filled life, not just to be working. That's where you got a little serious, right? For a
Yeah.
while. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
too
I mean,
responsible.
I had a lot of fun too, and definitely traveled and explored, but I definitely in my career got very serious and a little stuck, and I felt stuck. And I think that's what you're saying here is like, you're young enough to,
Oh,
not that it's ever too late, right? But you're young enough to really pivot and to try things and to take risks and, to fail and all of that at this stage. And it doesn't have to be that you have to sort of get it all right. Um, and then to really, like you're saying, prioritize fun, especially if you're someone that you think you want partnership and family and that kind of thing as you get older, or maybe you even started young with some of that. But if you do have that time before a partnership, a long-term marriage and kids, then this is the time where you can be a little more, I guess, carefree is one way of
yeah. Carefree is
putting
a
it.
great
Yeah.
way of putting it. In
Yeah.
carefree, you can still be paying your bills and putting away some money, but it's important to build in around it that you're exploring life and you're having adventures and you're enjoying yourself. I mean, that's true all through life, but I think this time that's part of what it's built for, is
Yeah.
this time in life. Yeah.
And are there any other challenges or pitfalls you see for women, or things that you wish you could tell women at this age and
Yeah.
stage?
Just don't get stuck in relationships, or again, jobs that really don't serve you. Maybe you have to stay for a while, but to be looking and really going for something different. And don't get stuck in fear. This is a time to be courageous. It's a time to do what scares you. This is a time you're developing mentally, emotionally, and to just get out there and try different things and have this confidence that life is going to work for you, and yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's,
I think that's huge. I mean, I did the stuck in a career thing for a while. I didn't stay stuck too much in relationships, but I do see that with women that, stay in something longer than they need to, and it's not really the right thing, or they just feel comfortable or something like that. And so what do you
Yeah.
want to say about that?
If you want children, because I've seen this frequently, is also not getting in a partnership and staying in it if your partner doesn't want children, because this is that critical time period. I see this is, you think, oh, I got time, I have time or whatever. But it's really important. If somebody does not want a family and you want a family, then that's a non-negotiable. And, there are other fish in the sea. Okay.
Yeah, I would add to that, not to be afraid to have those conversations with the people
Yeah.
you're dating, even if it's early, and to be really honest with yourself about what you want, because this is something I see a lot of young women do, is they go, oh, I'm just flexible, I don't know, I haven't decided, whatever. And that's fine for a time, maybe if you're in your early 20s, but we do have a biological clock as women, and and there are some things to think about there, especially around the decision to have kids or not to have kids. And so it's not that you have to know that super early on, but if you are clear, or if you can get clear, then to really own what you want is something I see, because otherwise people do wake up someday and they go, oh,
Yeah.
wait a second, I really want a family. And maybe you're in a relationship, like you're saying, with someone who doesn't, or you just didn't really prioritize looking for that partner. And that's a tough thing. I see a lot of women in their 30s and going through this, maybe into their mid to late 30s. And that's challenging, to realize, like, hey, this is really something I want, or I wanted, and feeling like they might not be able to have it.
Yeah.
Definitely. So let's talk about the next stage, which we're calling the queen, or your prime. And that's approximately, let's say, 33 to 43. So I'm in the stage right now, right smack dab in the middle of it. So what advice would you give to women in this season? How can they make the most of this time?
This is a time to build. I always say by 33, you want to be pretty much into something that you want to, dig your heels in there and put some work into and grow something. This is a time to really learn, I think, how to grow something and to be in there going and sticking with something. Now, again, this is coming from me, and in many ways I'm old school. These days, people don't stay in their jobs so long. And this doesn't mean that you have to stay in the same job, but it does mean to build in a direction to where, when you get into your 40s, then maybe you've built something, or you are at a point where you've gathered enough to where you're really going to build something. Many people go into their 40s and 50s is when they really build their careers, is because they've been working at something, you've learned how to build something, you know what you want, what you don't want, kind of. And so this is really a time that, I'd say the biggest thing there is to build, to get focused, even if it's not it. That's the other thing too. And just really go for it, because in that, I do believe by getting in there and going for it like that, you learn so much about when you are onto your next thing or your next career move, then you have gathered a lot of not just wisdom, but more of knowing what to do, experience,
confidence.
And confidence. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, even if it's not it? Because I think there are people that by this time they are starting to see, like, oh, this is a direction or a career path or something I'd really like to explore and build in. But there's also a lot of people that are like, I don't know, I still have no clue, or I'm doing this thing and I'm not sure if it's it, and they're questioning. So what do you mean by get in there and build, even if it's not it?
I think it's really important, as I said, that at this age, 33, 35, that you commit to something and you go for it for a few years. Unless you're just absolutely miserable and you just can't do it. I don't know. But I really, from everything I've seen, when people do this, when women do this, then what it does, it gives them opportunity. They learn, first of all, again, what do they want, what they don't want. You learn so much for being in that situation, and you start to see more clearly what you do want. And you also learn so much there in terms of how to make something move, how to grow something, how to have intent, how to commit. I mean, also. And then by doing that, you can get clear and clear about what you want, which I believe in your late 30s, early 40s. In your 40s, then it's time to really then say, if you want to make a shift, you make a shift then. You're go into so much power into your 40s. So much power. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions about this. One is, well, I think the alternative, like what's the alternative? It would be someone just like continuing to sort of flit around and try a bunch of whole different things, a lot of different things, and not sort of taking something for, you're saying, a few years or something like that and really going for it. So that's the alternative, or maybe kind of like a pitfall here, right? Is if you're just still sort of, and again, there's no right or wrong. We're not judging any of this, but acting like you're in your 20s and you have all the time in the world and just, jumping around versus, like you're saying, getting in there with something, building that muscle of intent, learning competence in something, growing in something, and then you can evaluate at some point, okay, is this really it or is it not? I guess my question is, women who do have children, or who take a break from work, and I may be kind of putting you on the spot with this question because we didn't really talk about it ahead of time, but how do you see that factor in? Because I know something that's like a really big, and we've talked about this in other podcast episodes. Like we have one we can link in the show notes around babies or business. Can I really have it all? But there is this thing of like, some women do choose to maybe take some time off when they're raising their kids. And a lot of times these days that happens in your 30s, So how do you see that sort of factoring into all of this when you're saying this is a time to get in and really commit to something? I mean, I guess it's just individual for each person, or what do you see there?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because the other thing I do believe is financially that women early on should start to, if I was going to go back and tell, if I was talking to younger women, I would say the financial piece is huge, is learning how you can take care of yourself. Because I think this is hugely important. If we would have more time and I would have done this, there's statistics about if men and women get divorced, women's lives and their lifestyles decrease enormously. And so in that factor, if you want to stay home, that's great, but you still have to figure out how financially, and of course, empowering your partner is one way, because you're absolutely in there and building with your partner by being their person. But I do feel that then that needs to be set up then that how you're going to be taken care of financially. Because I do see time after time after time after time, if I would say the biggest pitfall, that women think that I'll be with my partner forever. And of course, that would never happen to me. And then we get to a conversation and I say, are you taken care of? Many times they are not.
And when you say, are you taken care of, this is if something were to happen and you did end up splitting from your partner.
Or your partner,
would you be taken care of? Are things set in place in such a way that you would be financially supported?
Yeah, you would be financially supported. Yeah.
I think that's a really important conversation, and one that people don't want to look at or think about.
They don't want to look at it. Yeah.
So, I mean, anything you have to share around that, I think, is super valuable.
Yeah.
How do you walk women through that?
Is somehow you need to see how either you are earning in some way, or, I mean, a little time off is fine, right? But if you're not going to work for years, then whatever you're setting up in your dynamic, in your partnership, in your marriage, then there has to be a business aspect to that of how are you taken care of if anything happened and you parted, right?
And that would be
And
like setting up an agreement with your partner, or that would be just thinking this through. Like, how would a woman do that? Like, okay, I do want to take
first of all
many
is you,
years and just be home.
yeah, first of all is you know everything about your money situation. I find so much of the time, so women say, oh, well, I don't really handle that, so I don't really know. And so my first words of advice is you have business meetings with your partner every month. You know where everything is. You have access to every bank account. You know where everything is. This is your business if you're going to stay home, right? Your
Yeah, that's right
business
on.
is your partnership, and your partner's going to be the breadwinner. Then great. You're the empowerment to support that person in their breadwinning, but don't just turn it over and say, oh, okay, they handle that, because
Mm,
it's so important that this is a conversation early on with your partner as well. So you are the two of you running a business together, whatever they're doing, because you've both chosen that you're going to stay home, right?
yeah, super
And
interesting.
this is one of the biggest pitfalls in, I would say, marriages, partnerships that I find. Yeah, this is one of the biggest.
And even I
So
think it shows up for women who aren't
are
necessarily
right.
staying home.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
this thing of not knowing what's
Yeah.
happening with the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't know that it would go here, but if you ask me, I would say that's one of the areas that I really, really see as a problem often.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not to come in with fear or not to not stay home if that's something that you really
mm,
feel is right for you and you want to do, but it is to just be conscious of this, it sounds like, and to really have those sometimes challenging conversations
yeah,
and walk this all through and not just go, oh, it's all just
gonna
gonna
work out
work
fine. Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Because far too many women, it just, like you're saying, down the road, if for any reason the
Yeah.
marriage didn't work, then it puts the woman in a position where the man's been maybe earning all that time
Yeah.
and in his power and his career, and you haven't. Now the alternative, like you're saying, is like also to, I don't even know if it's an alternative, because I think you should understand the money dynamics in a relationship either way. But another thing is to take a little time, but to stay connected to something that, you love, or you're learning, or, you get back in and you do part-time or something like that. So you keep your earning power there. Okay.
Yeah.
What
Mm.
else? Okay.
Yeah, even like projects, you can do projects where you earn. It doesn't mean you have to have a business or a full-time career, but I think to keep yourself in the game of learning or putting out things, even if they don't make a lot of money, to keep your intelligence in that arena. I feel very strongly about that. Some other people may disagree with it totally, and I get that, and it's okay. But I feel very strongly, just because if you want to ask me in all my decades of my work, that is one of the main things I see. So,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
What else in your queen era is something that you see as important?
On the other side of that is for women being too focused on their career and
Mm,
forgetting they want a partnership and a marriage, or, children, and always thinking they'll do it later, getting addicted to the success and also just addicted to work. I see
mm,
women get addicted to work and to the stress and think that they don't have time. And that is baloney, I want to say. Yeah. So if you want a partner, it needs to be top priority. If you're in a very successful career, then just like anything, you have to figure out how to implement a certain or dedicate a certain amount of time every week, and you need to go after it. That's the other big one here.
yeah.
No excuses. No
Yeah.
excuses. And you have to kiss a lot of frogs sometimes before you find your prince. And and if you take the same level of commitment as you do to your career and put it into finding a partner, you will find a great partner. That too, I've helped women find relationships all over the world, or I haven't went out there and helped them find them, but I've walked them through and coached them to go out there and find their partner. And that is through, making certain agreements, keeping your agreements and going after it. And the pitfall here is really thinking that, oh, it's just going to happen someday. And when you're busy and you just don't have the time for it, a lot of times it's not going to happen. And that's the most terrible thing in the world. If that's what you really want, you don't want to regret that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. What else?
Another one is staying physically active, being active. This is your time to really build community. Also, this time is to grow and build a community. So as you move into your 40s, if you do have children, again, we don't know if people don't have children or they do have children. If you do have children, this is time where you're going to be busy with your kids and your career or whatever, your business. And you want to grow a good community because that community will take you into your 40s and 50s and into your life, right? To grow as you get older and everything. Some people have those connections through their university, right? They graduated together and they stay connected. But a lot of times people don't. And so this is your time. And when your kids are growing up, often you meet great people. And those are the people to stay friends with. And to stay friends with a lot of diverse people, I think that would be another thing that I would say.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people do, especially if they do have kids, sort of lose connection to other people if they're not in the same stage of life or something like that. And so it is to keep some sort of line to different kinds of people in your life, because that can really add a lot of richness as you do get older.
It does. And then you also just don't know where those people will come back into your life and everything, but if you don't stay connected, then you end up with a certain kind of friend or a certain kind, and you're going to grow and evolve so much through the years. You won't recognize yourself 20, 30 years from now, of course, parts of you, but you're going to evolve into hopefully even the more and more better versions of yourself. That's I think the proper way to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing is your health, just really in all the decades. Of course, in your 20s, we're, I think we're invincible.
Less aware of this.
Well, I don't know. I think you're invincible. But health is so important in all stages of life. And sometimes we can be more healthy than other times, but I do believe having a conscious awareness about that always is so important.
Yeah. It feels like health and finances, maybe among other things, but those are two that are like a through line where if you can just be, especially early on, taking those smaller steps that over the years will really add up, like making a small investment, or like, learning some things about exercise or nutrition, or just like taking those small steps early on, then they just prevent having, I don't want to say big issues down the road, but they can really set you up to reap the benefits as you continue to get older. So They're things that people can kind of lose sight of sometimes, I think, because they think, oh, I have all the time in the world, or my body's just healthy or whatever. I know that like for me, I've always prioritized health because I've had a lot of health challenges. But like for my husband, he was one of those people that was always just healthy. He was always healthy. His body just worked. He never had to think about it. And then as he's gotten into his later 30s, it's like, oh my gosh, different things are sort of like breaking down in the body, or like it's just not healing the way that it used to heal. And it's like this wake up call for him to go like, whoa, I'm not invincible, like you said, and to kind of put that in.
Yeah, not to generalize or genderize, but men often think that, right? Yeah, they just think they are invincible. Yeah, it's crazy.
Absolutely. I like that, genderize. There was one more I think, wanted to touch on here, which is around relationship. If they are in a long-term relationship, just while they're in this stage, what is it that they should be focused on there?
This is a time where, especially if you have kids, or if you're just really building your careers, what I find is people start living separate lives a little bit because they're busy. And there's, I think, a myth out there that this is natural. This is just natural. This is what happens. And we, it'll all work out. It'll all work out. We'll get back together. And this is also one that I find is a very serious mistake. It's so important to, especially around your 40s, is I almost say like reinvent your relationship and put a lot of time and attention into growing your relationship with your significant other to the next stage. Because kids come in or careers come in, and if you don't find time together, what happens is this is also very much of a time where you are growing and growing as a person, and you're evolving very much. And if you grow apart, sometimes it's very hard to come back together because people feel like they don't really have anything in common. And so what happens is we talk about that midlife crisis and everything, right? And it's because people wake up and then they feel a little bit alone and not so connected to their partner. And we as humans are looking for the next, exciting thing. And this is where things break down. There's also a time where women go in around 43 and go, okay, this is my life. And they look around, they go, is this the life I really want? And often you'll see women will leave their marriages at this time. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with so many women to show, is it really going to get so much better when you leave? If you start to build your connection with your partner and make that a priority, again, no matter how much you think you don't have the time, then what happens is then you can go through this challenging kind of for men and women, both this time where we feel a little unsettled, but you go through it together, which is awesome. You build a strong muscle there together.
So we're kind of on the border now between the Queen and then the Alchemist, which is the next stage of life that we're saying starts around 43 for most people. But it is to start to think about before you get to that stage, like you're saying, that you're planting seeds in your relationship, or you're taking the time and being conscious in your relationship that you're not just growing apart. And I see this especially with people who have kids. Is that in their 30s or, early 40s, is that everything becomes about the kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they just kind of go, oh, well, this is just that stage of life and my relationship will bounce back, right? But so much of the time it doesn't bounce back if you don't really put the time and the energy into whether it be your sex life or your communication or whatever it is. So what you're saying is that kind of that Queen era of your 30s, early 40s is really a time to, even though you're busy or even though you're raising kids or whatever, like don't let that go too long, right? Like really make sure you're prioritizing your relationship.
Yeah. When you prioritize, I can't say that, your relationship, that means you make time for it. And it's not just a date night every week. You really are attentive to your partner. You make quality time important, which if you have children is so valuable for your kids to see as well. It's really important for kids to see their parents spending time together away from them and learning how to give parents that space to build their relationship together. That's a great part of being role models for your kids when they have partnerships too.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into what we're calling the Alchemist, or kind of midlife, which is maybe 44 to 60-ish. What advice would you give to women in that season of life?
Take everything you've learned, and then really build something. Really get out there. If you want to build something, your own thing, then get in there and go for it. If you want to build even, again, a great marriage at this point, whatever, but everything you've learned, you want to take it and start really applying it at this point, because this is really some of your most powerful times in your life. This is the time when we go through menopause. And as we know, I'm sorry, McKenna, I'm going to the challenges,
the pitfalls.
Right? Yeah, the pitfalls.
We'll come back to menopause.
Yeah, okay, I want to talk about that, yeah. And this is a time I really feel it's time to build your lifestyle. So continue to build your community, but also build the lifestyle that you want. At this point, usually you have some success And if you have kids, they're probably in their teens or, or maybe not. But you are at this
They're maybe
time.
not super small, well, maybe these
Yeah.
days, but
Yeah.
at
These
the
days,
beginning of the
it's,
stage.
and so this is a time to design what's your lifestyle over the next 20 years. How do you want to live your life, and to bring all those elements in of the things that you've learned and the things that you know about yourself, because also at this stage you know so much about yourself. And it's also a time, I think, too, like I said, in your 20s, is to also have fun during this time, to start to set up a lifestyle where there's pleasure in your life, there's time off, there's a rhythm that you really enjoy here.
I feel like the queen was kind of planting seeds and watering them, like
Yeah.
building. And this is really like the harvest, this is the harvest time.
Yeah. Let's see what else during this time.
So if you're still raising your family in this time, which some people will be, again, it depends on the ages of your kids. This is a bigger span of maybe 15, 16 years we're saying here. So even if they're really young in the beginning and then they're kind of getting older here, but let's just assume that they're starting to get to, they're not little babies anymore. What should people be focused on around like family, relationship?
Yeah, I think creating your family structures and really having with family too, with your parents, if your parents are older, really looking to see how are you going to navigate all the different parts of family. Because this is another point I see is people don't want to really talk about this and they ignore it. And then they hit them over the head and then they have to do something. Whereas if you're thinking about it ahead of time, you start to think of different options. And in that, what happens is it starts to give you different ways. And it's not a problem. It's integrated within to how you're going to grow and evolve in your family system.
Can you say more about what you mean by that? Like, what is it that you need to face into at this stage?
Is to see, I've seen this also, is that if you have older parents, it depends on the ages, that at some point you are going to have to be supportive probably with your parents. And even if, it depends on where they are. So knowing and having conversations, if that does happen, you have to support your parents. How are you going to support your parents? What do, as a family, is there other siblings? What do you want to do? Because I've seen this be actually a big problem in families because they haven't thought this through and they haven't integrated the parents into this as well. And so then there becomes conflict during this time if there is support that's needed. And it shouldn't be that way. It should already be thought through, because if that happens, it's a part of life. And then it's not just put on one person or a certain way it has to go. And I've seen this many, many, many times as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So just being proactive, thinking ahead.
Proactive.
Having those conversations with both your parents, and then if you do have siblings or whoever else is in the family, your partner, how will you guys navigate if your parents' health starts to decline or or they need support financially or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Okay. What else in this stage?
Just to touch on again, this is if you're in a relationship that make sure you make your relationship a priority and invest, make sure you're setting up for your retirement, again, keeping that financial eye on things and system set up with savings and what you're going to do. And, start to dream about this too at this time. I think a lot of people wait. And I think it's really important, just like with the aging parents, of also looking at what are you going to want as you get older? What do you want to do? Maybe you want to retire early, and if you thought about that, how do you want to do that and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's talk about menopause, because this is a big conversation in this stage of life. We've done a whole podcast episode about this that we can share the link to in the show notes. But I think this would fall under kind of the challenges or pitfalls, right? do you want to share at a very high level what you see with menopause?
Yeah, we talked about this. I think menopause is a time of change, and it can be uncomfortable. I know there's a lot of physical aspects that go to it, and it's different for every single woman, so we can't generalize there. As we talked about in our podcast, I do believe that it has gotten a bad rap in terms of that everything around it is negative these days. And I don't believe that is the way to view it and to experience it also. And so it can be a pitfall because it can really take women off because they start blaming everything on menopause. And, really sometimes it becomes an excuse instead of you having to do the work on yourself, and the work on yourself to, at this stage in life, like I said, this is a stage of reflection, around 45 is the time, or 42 to 45, when we look and go, this is our life. Do I like this life? And so in that's part of that whole time. And, and again, maybe that's part of what menopause is all about, is kind of getting rid of what doesn't serve us anymore and bringing in, that's the way I look at it, is bringing into our life more and more of who we are and who we want to become. And that this is an awakening for you with all this power you've grown over your life to take this and really, really do what you want in life. And so it's an opportunity. It's really an opportunity.
I love that. Yeah. Just really shifting your perspective. And again, you can go much deeper on this in our episode where we talk about this, but so that's a big pitfall. The pitfall we talked about around relationship, if people don't really invest into that at this stage. And then I think financially, like we talked about, just making sure you're set up, whether you took time off with your kids or you're doing that, or, or not, just really kind of thinking and planning ahead. So that takes us to the wise woman, which is the last of the stages we want to talk about here. So this would be really maybe 60 onwards and probably postmenopausal. So what advice would you give to women in this season? How can they make the most of this time?
This is a time to really be able to do what you want to do. And same thing, you don't have the power in this time. You have the wisdom, like you said. You have the intelligence. You have the energetic, what would you say, kind of way of being at this stage. And so this is a shift to not the doing. This is the shift to being, is the truth. Yeah. And to being in who you are and what you've learned. Here's where you do have enormous amount of life experience. And I think the greatest gift here is to be able to share that experience. And that is with your family, your friends, or in your work. I'm blessed to have my work to be able to share that in, to be able to use my wisdom in that way. And it's also a time of reinvention for yourself. I think it's really a time to look and see, how do you want to live your life for the next 20 years or 30 years, or who knows these days, right? And because you can be a completely different person. You've raised your children and you're at a different stage in your life it's almost like a time of play, of seeing, and sometimes
returning to another childhood.
It is return to another childhood, and there's a lot of people at this stage too that continue to create in such a way that they become an actress at 60, or an incredible author, or you can do anything. But the distinction is the shift from physical making things happen to sitting in, like I said, instead of the doing, into the being, because this is where, if we use ourselves in ways that aren't in alignment with who we are and what we're doing, that this is where it can be harmful to people, because if you stay in a life of stress, then you're not physically in the same position. Now, I don't mean that you can't be super physically strong during this time. Of course you can. It takes a lot more work, and the body does feel different. But I think this is where health is really, really, really important. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully you've been prioritizing that along the way, but
yeah,
it's a different way of focusing on it at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can you talk about people who like age more quickly in this stage versus people who keep a sort of youthfulness? Like, what do you see as the difference there?
Well, for me, it's always about aliveness. It's doing the things that you love doing and finding what that is and staying. This is, again, kind of a shift back to adventure in life. This is a time to be super curious, learn new things, keep your brain active, and to not just sit back and say, oh, I'm getting older, to be constantly trying to evolve and learn, and it doesn't have to be the kind of learning you did when you were 30, but it does need that you constantly need to be stimulating your brain and be active, and don't sit back and think, oh, now I'm done and I'm just going to take care of my grandkids. I mean, I know a lot of people want to do that, but what I see is the greatest gift you can give to your grandkids is to also be a super active person, that they come into your world and they learn from you. What else?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting distinction. I think the idea that by this time you've lived your life and it's just kind of all downhill, or it's all going to stay the same or something like that. It's like many people live till 80s, 90s and beyond
100.
These days.
Yeah.
And so in that, you're saying don't just sort of like let it just go. Keep something that you are learning, that you are exploring, that you are curious about. And that's really what keeps people young, right?
Yeah, have something that you love doing. I think that's the key. And, if that's gardening, if that's whatever that is, you want to incorporate something that you want to love doing, and to be, like I said before, to reinvent yourself, to make this, instead of an ending, a beginning again, because I do believe it's a beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's your second version of your 20s and
yeah, exactly.
30s. You get to go out and explore. You get to go
have fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Do all those things you want to do.
Oh, I know. The other thing I would say is to be in service. That's another part of this, is taking your wisdom and everything and somehow being in service. And that can be to your family. For some, it really feels powerful to do that, or that can be for, getting out and doing something where you're a mentor or something, but something that keeps you mentally and physically active, I think, are the two keys here. And of course, financially, at this point, most people have put aside money and they can enjoy, but you can still earn in this time too.
Yeah. I mean, you were turning 60 the year that we started our official mentorship, and I was turning 30 that year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in that, you've been doing your work for 40 years now, but that was really a time where you went into mentorship of me. And then also over these years, we've been able to create different projects like this podcast where you get to share your wisdom. So looking for what's your version of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because people ask me, I don't think I'll ever, of course I will retire in the sense of the way I work right now, but I think I will stay constantly mentally, hopefully, active, if that's writing books or whatever that is, to continue the process, or maybe that's, dancing, who knows? So, yeah.
She's going to have a whole new career as a rock star in these next years.
The 70-year-old rock star. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have someone in your life that you think would enjoy this, get benefit from it, whatever stage of life they're in. Please share it with them, and we will see you in the next episode.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, McKenna.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.